In the summer of 2012, the Mukherjee family moved into their new apartment in North Kolkata. It was a large, old building with peeling yellow paint and massive iron gates that creaked in protest every time they swung open. The apartment itself was on the second floor, with high ceilings and intricate wooden detailing that hinted at its colonial past. Despite its charm, something felt off. The air was heavy, the kind that made your chest feel tight. Even on the brightest of days, the locals avoided the building and spoke in hushed tones when asked about it. No one stays there for long, one shopkeeper told Mr. Mukherjee. But Mr. Mukherjee, a no-nonsense accountant, dismissed such remarks as old wives' tales. On the first night, as they were settling into bed, a faint knocking echoed through the apartment. It was soft, rhythmic, and something to be coming from the direction of the storage room at the end of the hallway. Must be the old wood expanding, Mr. Mukherjee muttered, turning over in bed. His wife, Priya, wasn't so sure, but she said nothing. Their daughter, Ria, slept fitfully that night. The next morning, she complained about a strange dream. There was a man, she said. He was standing at the door. He kept staring at me, but his face, it wasn't right at all. Priya brushed it off as the nerves of moving into a new place, but deep down she felt uneasy. As the days passed, knocking persisted, always around midnight. It wasn't loud, but it was relentless. Mr. Mukherjee checked the storage room multiple times, but there was nothing inside except for some old furniture left by the previous tenants. One day, while cleaning the room, Priya found something unsettling. Behind the dusty shelf was an old and black photograph. It showed a man in a dhoti and kurta, standing stiffly with a neutral expression. His eyes seemed to follow her, no matter how she held the photograph. Scribbled on back were the date 1956. Priya felt a chill run down her spine. She decided to throw the photograph away, no matter where she placed it in trash outside the building. It always found its way back onto the storage room shelf. Ria's dreams grew more vivid. She began talking about the man more frequently. He's always behind the door, she whispered to her mother one night. He's always waiting. Priya tried to comfort her, but her own fear was growing. She started noticing strange things, cold drafts in the hallway, even with all the windows shut, lights flickering in the kitchen, and shadows that seemed to move just out of line of sight. The final straw came when Ria refused to sleep in her room. He's standing in the corner. She stopped one evening, pointing at an empty space. Desperate for answers, Priya approached an elderly neighbor named Mrs. Datta, who had lived in the area for decades. When Priya mentioned in the storage room, Mrs. Datta's expression darkened. The man in the photograph, she said, was a tenant here a long time ago. His name was Hari. He lived close, and he was found dead in that storage room. They said it was suicide, but there were whispers. Some believed it was murdered over money dispute. Mrs. Datta leaned in closer. His body was left there for weeks before anyone found him. People say it's his spirit that's trapped away, angry. He doesn't like anyone disturbing his space. The Mukherjees decided to leave the apartment. They packed hurriedly, planning to leave the next morning. But that night the knocking grew louder, angrier. The sound reverberated through the walls, shaking the furniture. At exactly midnight, the storage room door burst open. A chilling wind swept through the apartment, extinguished all the lights in the pale moonlight. They saw him, a figure standing in the doorway. His face was not, his eyes hollow and glowing faintly. Priya screamed, clutching Ria tightly, but the figure raised an emaciated hand and pointed directly at the child. You brought them here, it rasped. The air turned suffocating as the man began moving towards them, his footsteps slow but deliberate, the family bottled, leaving everything behind. The Mukherjees never returned to the apartment. They moved to another city, refusing to speak what happened. The buildings remain vacant to this day. Locals claim the storage room door opens on its own at midnight, and faint knocking can still be heard, echoing through the hallway. Those who dare to approach the building at night report seeing a shadowy figure standing at the window, watching. And the photograph? It still sits on the storage room shelf, untouched and unclaimed. Come back again at another nocturnal hour to witness another horrifying story.